Alright, you ready to talk about some shit?
Yes! Yes!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talking Shit, a podcast where we talk some shit. I'm here with my regular co-host, Joe. Hi, Joe.
Hey, bro.
How have you been?
I am amazing.
As always.
We have just finished watching Prisoners.
We have indeed just finished watching Prisoners, which is the film we're going to be talking about this week. Because, my God, if any film deserves to have an entire episode revolved just around it, it is this film. Am I right?
It's very good.
It's so good. So this is probably the freshest, the freshest we're ever going to be on a film that we talk about here, because no word of a lie, we literally finished watching it, maybe 15 minutes ago?
Yeah.
Yeah, so, yeah, all these thoughts that are coming straight off the dome, they are coming literally straight off the dome because...
freestyle, baby.
Yeah, literally, because I've only made notes because this is a longer film and we've been very busy this week, so we actually had to split it up into... We both watched the first half separately, and then we got to about the same place, so today we thought, well, we both got to finish it anyway, so let's just watch it together.
So busy. Our lives are so important.
Yeah, you know, Britain going into a second lockdown just... Oof. I mean, if anything, that does actually make both of us busier. But either way, I know it's so weird how that works out. But yeah, so just before we get into the main dish of today's
juicy part,
the main course, if you will, do you have anything that you want to say to the listeners?
right? I apologise for not liking as much Guardians Volume 2.
Yep.
Because now it is probably in my top 5
Hell yeah.
Marvel films.
Hell
yeah. We rewatched it,
Yes, we did.
and it's... I don't know why I didn't... To be honest, I don't know why I didn't like it before, because I think what I said last time is I didn't like Ego,
Yep.
the main villain,
Yep.
and I guess I didn't like Mantis.
Yeah, you did like
And-
Mantis.
And maybe I don't even know. I just had a bit of a. It
bit
wasn't
of a
that
meh?
memorable, I guess.
Yeah.
But
Your opinion
yeah,
has changed.
My opinion has changed. It chucks you about.
Yes.
Like one
an
minute
emotional roller
you're
coaster.
laughing, 1 minute
You're crying.
you're crying.
Literally, I remember telling you, I was trying not to cry at several moments. I teared up every time I watched that film. I teared up.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I was but the fact that you liked it was enough for me.
Yeah.
Because you're much more manly than me, obviously. But yeah, so for those of you who didn't listen to last week's episode, we ranked all the Marvel movies. It was a really fun time. I really highly recommend you listen to it. It was great. And yeah, there was just Guardians 2 hate going around, even though it's my favourite film of all time. Like, not favourite Marvel film of all time, it's my favourite film of all time.
Cinema.
So, in the week when Joe was like, do you want to watch it? I was like, yes. And, yeah, he was, I remember at the end you were very annoyed at yourself, because you were just there like, what did I say?
Yeah, I was disappointed in past me, and I don't even know. I guess because I watched it. I think I've only ever watched it in the cinemas,
Yes, yeah.
and that's the only time, I guess.
I do
And
remember
I just
saying-
forgot about it.
Yeah, I do remember saying to you as well, because you went to go see it with two of our friends, Chris, who was on this podcast last week, and Brad, who will be on this podcast at some point if we can ever pin him down and get him to record.
Wrestle with him.
Exactly. It's just an excuse to wrestle with him. But no, and Chris hadn't even seen the first Guardians going into it, so you couldn't have had a more casual, not paying attention experience, I'd say. I think that's fair, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm someone who I won't talk a lot in the film, but I'll, if I
You will
I
whisper
I
funny things.
I will just try and joke about a bit because I just see something and I think it's funny.
I'm fully against talking in the cinema, but I'm not against if you can whisper in your friend's ear that's next to you. I'm okay with that as long as I don't hear it. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I do.
I always like to think that I don't go overboard.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of get in and get out and then return to the movie.
Are we talking about cinemas or sex? But yeah, no. So yeah, I remember we went to go see The Dark Knight together. As soon as cinemas reopened, we were like, Dark Knight, great, let's go see. And I think that was actually the first time we've been to see a film together, you know.
Yeah.
I really think it was, yeah, which is weird how that's worked out. But yeah, to be honest, I was laughing a lot just because of what you said. But then I have to be careful not to laugh too hard. Yeah. There was actually we went to go see. You remember when we went to see New Mutants?
Yeah, I was just about to say.
And there was like one other person in there, so we all just outright, because that film is. I don't care what you've heard about New Mutants, guys. It's fucking hilarious. Like it's not even so bad that it's good. It's so mediocre that it's hilarious. Like
yeah, I will reiterate what I said when we were walking out. that is the only film I've ever like watched like in the cinema, and at the end I actually genuinely laughed at the title. Like the title came up at the end, and I just laughed.
I was so with you, man. I was
bad
with you.
Of an ending.
I've done that for quite a few films, and it's always ones that people find really good. I think I laughed at the end of it was one of the X-Men films, ironically enough, that people thought was really good. It might have been what was it? I think it might have been Days of Future Past or something. Not that that's a bad film, just the ending just really made me laugh. But yeah, no, I do remember that, because the ending is just really mediocre, and I remember leaning into you and being like, is that it? And then the title card came up and we burst out laughing.
Yeah, it kind of tries to be somewhat deep with
the
the metaphor of
bears.
Bears, man.
In everybody's soul, there's two bears. One's a bear, but one's a slightly bigger bear, and
bears. Full stop.
And literally, that should be the IMDb plot synopsis for New Mutants, just bears. But yeah, anyway, we are getting massively off track, but that's fine. So what we're actually here to talk about today, as we said before, is Prisoners, which is a Denis Villeneuve film. And if you do not know who Denis Villeneuve is, I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong, I apologize. Go find out, because my god, this guy makes good movies. Whew. I pulled up his IMDb just to remind myself, even though I should know all these off by heart. But I mean, he's done Arrival, he's done Blade Runner 2049, he's doing Dune, new. Who makes the book?
Frank Herbert wrote the book.
That's the one.
Books. They're really good.
I don't like reading. He did Sicario. He's obviously done Prisoners. In the same fucking year, he did Enemy. This guy makes really good films, guys. Just
Enemy kind of still annoys me, but
I understand why it would annoy you, but I love it personally.
It's good, but yeah,
it's
Enemy.
Great. Enemy. If you really like artsy film, confusing artsy films where you really have to figure out what's going on. I'm not talking like an Inception where it's like, oh, what's going on right now? It's like, no, it's like the entire film. You're like, why is this scene happening? Why is he doing that facial expression? You have to pay attention a lot. So I can understand why a lot of casual people wouldn't want to do that. And I'm not shaming you at all, because it is exhausting, but my God, Enemy's fantastic.
I am solid in my view.
I
will
know.
not be wavered.
I can change
I'm
your
not
mind
saying
on
it's
Guardians.
bad. I'm not saying it's not bad, but it just veers a bit too much into the artsy.
Yeah. It's not your kind of film at all, is it?
No, because even the fact that you're saying, it's one of them artsy films,
yes, yeah.
Why? I don't know, I just don't like it.
Yeah, no, I can understand why. So what we're going to do for everybody, we're going to do just a quick rundown of the plot for Prisoners. I'll talk about some of the behind-the-scenes stuff, and then we'll do our non-spoiler thoughts, because this really is a film that if you haven't seen it, you should definitely see it, not knowing anything. It's fantastic. Don't spoil it for yourself. And we'll let you know when we go into the spoiler section at the end. The spoiler section is going to be the real meat of this episode, because there's just so much to talk about. But if you haven't seen the film, stick around for like the first, 20 minutes of this. I'll put timestamps below. Yeah, just we'll let you know when we start spoiling stuff so you can get out and watch it. And then come back and listen, please. So anyway, Prisoners. What's it about, Joe? Non-spoilers, obviously. What's it about?
It's about Thanksgiving, mainly. And how on Thanksgiving,
Yep.
you shouldn't let your children go outside
Yes.
because they will get abducted.
Only on Thanksgiving, though.
Yeah. So yeah, the film starts on Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Hugh Jackman's daughter, who is called Keller.
No, he's called Keller.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And her friend,
The kids.
who they're visiting their house
It's like
at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, Hugh Jackman and his wife, who I forget the actress's name, I should really look it up. They're family friends with like another family, Terrence Howard and Viola Davis, and they go over for Thanksgiving. And the two, they have both of the families have two young daughters, and they get abducted on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
And then it's this big kind of mystery of like Jake Gyllenhaal's a detective who's been assigned to find them. He's solved every case he's ever done, and tensions rise as Hugh Jackman kind of flips out and does some things that would seem a bit questionable, but bear in mind his daughter's been kidnapped.
Mental.
He goes mental. That is the best way to describe it.
And shouts a lot.
He shouts a lot, and he has lip trembles a lot, which we'll get into. So, yeah, so a bit of the behind the scenes on this. So, Denis Villeneuve worked with Jake Gyllenhaal, obviously, for Enemy, which is a much smaller budget film than this. So, that was, even though it came out in the same year, it was like finished really quickly. So Jake Gyllenhaal has a completely different look in both films, but because of Enemy and the amazing performance he did in that, he just hired Jake Gyllenhaal without an audition. He just went, yeah, you've got the part, because Jake Gyllenhaal was like, I'm interested. He went, yeah, you're in. Which is another win for Jake Gyllenhaal in the classic Gyllenhaal versus Ryan Gosling feud. It's a friendly feud, but they audition for a lot of the same roles. And you know, I feel like they're kind of the two greatest actors of our generation, in my opinion. I
haven't watched a lot of Jake Gyllenhaal. I mean,
he's fantastic.
Ryan Gosling.
Oh, you mean Ryan Gosling?
At all?
He's in some really good stuff.
The last thing I probably watched from him is The Big Short.
Oh, I haven't seen that yet. I really want to watch it.
Yeah, I like it.
It looks funny.
Yeah. I've watched it a couple of times now, but apart from that, I can't even think.
I've just seen I've seen like the scene on Netflix. It was trying to advertise it to me where like he's like saying that, are you sure you've done like the maths right? They're in like a board meeting and they're like, Ryan Gosling, are you sure you've done the maths right? He's trying to pitch something. And he goes, yeah, we have an Asian guy doing the maths. He doesn't speak a word of English. And then the Asian guy turns to the camera like, I'm actually from like Wisconsin. He's like, he just doesn't want me to talk because it makes me seem smarter.
It's Brad Pitt and Steve Carell as well, isn't it? I think.
Is it?
I think.
Isn't Christian Bale in it?
Yeah.
You're looking up the cast? Yeah.
There's a bunch.
Oh, either way, I want to watch that. He's done Blade Runner 2049, which even though I don't like that film very much, he does do a good performance in it. I mean, it's very subtle, but he is an android, so it's like, you know.
Yeah.
He's meant to be. He's in Drive, which is an incredible film that not enough people have seen. It's amazing. Only God Forgives, which is okay. He does a great performance. It's just the film is only okay, in my opinion, at least. People are going to argue about it for years.
I was going to say what film are we talking about, but I just saw that Selena Gomez is in The Big Short.
Is she?
Yeah.
She have lupus
so I'll just
during
say
that time or not?
I don't know.
Okay, cool.
But let's get back to Prisoners.
Let's get back to Prisoners, yeah. I'm trying to get to my notes and I keep knocking the microphone. So the original cut of this film was 3 hours long, which, yeah. When I read this, I was kind of thinking, maybe it would have been even better with 3 hours. I'm not saying it's bad because it got stuff cut out. Like, it works. It's very cohesive. It works very well. But I do feel like you might have maybe more time to flesh out the ending specifically with more of time.
I personally think it's fine. I think
Oh, I think it's fine. Yeah,
maybe if it's longer, it could just get messier, and
maybe.
with all these
I mean, it's.
somewhat interconnected
Mm.
stories.
I mean,
Yeah,
it's still Denis Villeneuve. Like, I'd trust him to do a 3-hour cut. Like, hashtag release
Yeah.
the Villeneuve cut. You know what I mean? Why not?
Yeah.
So here's some more interesting stuff about like the production of this film before Villeneuve got the being the director for it. It was actually written way back in like 2009, where it was put on the blacklist, which is like a list of it's a list of screenplays that like Hollywood chooses every single year that have been made, like that haven't been made yet, but they think they're really good, and they just put them on a blacklist that like a bunch of studios can look at and say, oh, that's kind of cool, and then make it. And then in 2010, a version was going to be made by the awful human being Bryan Singer, who did most of the X-Men films, but turned out to be the worst. And it was going to be Mark Wahlberg and Christian Bale in that version. So I'm assuming Wahlberg would have been Keller, the Hugh Jackman role.
Yeah,
because you would think Christian
man.
Bale. Yeah, because Christian Bale wouldn't have been right for the everyman. Like, he definitely would have been good as a, kind of the detective role.
Yeah. I can see Christian Bale, not Mark Wahlberg. But,
yeah, Mark Wahlberg would. Yeah.
Who is Mark Wahlberg? Like, does anyone respect him as an actor? I don't. I don't personally.
He wakes up at 4. No, what does he do? He wakes up at like 2:30 in the morning to pray. Then he eats. Then he works out. And then he goes to bed at like 7 in the evening.
Pray, much like Hugh Jackman's character.
So he would have been perfect. Leonardo DiCaprio was also he was attached to the project for a while. I couldn't really find too much out about it, but I'm assuming he would have been Leonardo DiCaprio. He would have had to have been the detective, right? Surely. I don't know. He could play an everyman, but who knows?
I can't see it.
Yeah, and then also Hugh Jackman Jesus, fireworks are going off. Sorry, people. If you hear me jump every now and then, it's because it's bonfire night and people are going crazy. So yeah, and then Hugh Jackman also got the role of Keller in a different version that was going to be made by a different director, but that fell through. But then he still got the part when Villeneuve finally picked it up. And that's all the trivia I could be bothered to look up.
Trivia time.
Trivia! So yeah, I guess we'll get into our non-spoiler review of the film then. It's great.
Non-spoilers.
It's very hard to talk about this film with non-spoilers because it's very hard to explain why it's so powerful without getting into it, but we'll do our best. I'd say...
I was just going to say, I mean, without giving details away, you can say, it builds very well, like, especially Hugh Jackman's character.
Yes.
His rage inside of him.
It's handled very well.
Yeah. And
it's a very it's a very believable transition that he goes through from. They set up I'll talk about the opening. They set up his character really well, where like there's this amazing, gorgeous opening shot where Hugh Jackman and his son, played by the kid from 13 Reasons Why, they're like hunting a deer, and it's this really still like shot where it moves through the woods, and like he's doing the Lord's Prayer, which he repeats a lot throughout the film, and it's just a really good setup of how his faith plays into how like he snaps, because it's this idea of like throughout the film he gets more desperate to get his daughter back, and he goes to more and more crazy lengths to do it, and he's always goes back to that Lord's Prayer and about forgiveness, because he's this person who the character's like he's set up as somebody who's always prepared. He's like been raised to be prepared for the worst situations, and so for this situation, even though obviously he wasn't specifically prepared for his kid being kidnapped, like he was prepared mentally to be able to do whatever it takes, and I think it's a really interesting build of how it comes across.
It's kind of, he will do whatever it takes, but the journey there kind of destroys him.
Oh, definitely,
and, yeah, he's not a happy fellow.
And then on the other side of that, Jake Gyllenhaal My God, what a performance! What a performance!
Jake Gyllenhaal is great.
He's fantastic. Like, he can't pull off a beanie. I did make a note of that. Every scene where he wears a beanie, I'm like, put it away, Jake. You got a gorgeous head of hair.
Yeah. I also can't get over his like, I don't know if he has Tourette's or something, but he's like he's blinking all the time.
That was Jake Gyllenhaal's own input. He wanted his character to be like twitchy.
Yeah, okay. Like on edge all the time.
Yeah. Because the idea of his character is that, like, they set him up where it's on Thanksgiving night and he's at like a Chinese restaurant, just at like at some truck stop or whatever, and he's by himself. Yeah, because the idea is that even though we don't get his backstory, I did look it up where, like, he was like raised at like an orphanage. He never knew his parents and stuff like that. Right, and that's the idea is that he has no emotional attachment, and that's what makes him such a good detective. But it also shows that, like, he's not a satisfied person inside.
I mean, very early on in the film, well, even from him being alone on Thanksgiving in that restaurant, you know, he's portrayed as this unstoppable detective.
Yes.
He's never lost a case. He's always solved it.
Yeah, they make mention of that.
Yeah, and I guess you can imagine, you know, as the cases go on and you solve more and more, the pressure gets more and more, and you know, he's always got to live up to that. So, and he's probably, you know, he's getting further and further away from any kind of emotional attachment he's going to have with anyone.
Yeah, of course.
And that's why he's alone on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, there's a lot of scenes throughout the film where, like, you know, people around him are just losing it, like freaking out, like, where are the kids, and he stays. Don't get me wrong, he's like, you know, he's angry at every time he, you know, say, like, you know, he goes and knocks on doors and thinks he has found thinks he's found a clue and it ends up being nothing. He's annoyed. He's, you know, he's not a robot, but he's not, like, you know, worried about. He's not so much worried about the girl's safety in terms of, you know, making sure that he does everything he can in the eyes of the parents. He's very much like, I'm going to stick to the system, but I'm going to do this. Like, he's like, I'm not going to be, you know, this isn't going to be the first case that I don't solve. He's like, I'm going to save those girls.
Thinking about it, obviously, he, as you say, he does actually care.
Yes.
But I'm just thinking, are the only places he freaks out in the professional setting of the police station? I'm just wondering. Yeah,
he never lets civilians kind of see him, like, flip.
Yeah,
like, we don't.
Well, he talks back to his boss, and
yes,
you know, which is like, it's not a bad thing. Like, it's understandable between them.
Yeah, they have like a mutual respect where they'll call each other out on their shit.
Yeah, but yeah, I'm just thinking, did he ever, like, flip out with Hugh Jackman or any of the other characters? I don't think he did.
I don't think he does now. I think any kind of deep emotional kind of stuff that happens to him, he does it either in a professional setting where, like, you know, he knows that he won't be judged, or like he does it subtly alone. Like, you can see it playing on his mind, hence like all the twitching and stuff.
Basically anything to do with his job, and he's kind of flips out.
So those two performances just throughout are incredible, and everyone else, obviously the film is about those two, but everyone else is fantastic in this. Paul Dano he plays a Paul Dano role, you know. He's very, like, he's very mentally unstable, and, like, he does such a good job of making you feel like he's like the first suspect. I don't want to say something that might say spoil it, but he's like the first suspected person who could be linked to the girl's disappearance, but they have a really hard time getting stuff out of him because he has the IQ of like a 10-year-old.
Yep.
And he just does this really good job. Like, he does such a good job of making you believe that this guy could be a child kidnapper, but also, like, is innocent at the same time. Like, he flips back and forth so much that, like, it's a really interesting. Like, it really, like, plays on your mind throughout the entire film. Like, is this guy innocent? Is this guy just crazy? Is this, you know what I mean? Like, has he had something to do with it?
Yeah.
And it's great. And we should also point out, this film is shot beautifully. Like,
yes,
every frame is just incredible. Like, we were kind of talking about it towards the end, so obviously we won't say the situation, but there's just the final few shots of this film. They perfectly match the emotion that the end of the film is going for.
Yeah.
And they just really, you just feel like you're a part of this story. Like, it just draws you in so much.
It is very depressing all the way through. Like, it's very dark and drab, just like the weather seems to be all the way through.
Well, when they get kidnapped, it's like raining, which is, kind of very.
They never have any good weather in this place. Wherever they are.
It like snows on and off as well, which like hinders crime scene. Like they're like digging in gardens and stuff, trying to find evidence, and because it snows so much, it's like really hard to get evidence, which just puts even more pressure on Jake Gyllenhaal's character and Hugh Jackman. This is just an incredible film. Like Joe says, this isn't a good, fun, happy time. Like, you really have to be in the right mood for this, and I know that's hard nowadays because, second lockdown, yay. Like, you probably don't want to watch a depressing film about
depression.
Yeah, kids being kidnapped. But I will say the resolution at the end, like what happens at the end, it feels very. How do I say this without spoiling anything? Like, the resolution, everything makes sense. This is a very confusing film. You have to be paying attention, like, to all the little clues. But at the end, you won't be unsatisfied with, like, how the story comes together. Like, I won't say what happens, but how it all comes together and, like, how everything makes sense. Like, I mean, this is both of our second watches, and we kind of found out, as we'll talk about in spoilers, you found out specifically, I got to give you the credit, you realised a bunch of connections that we didn't even realise the first time, and it just made the film even better. Like, it's crazy. I don't know how we didn't realise the first time, like...
Yep.
But this is just a film where you're rewarded for paying attention. It's not like one of those, like, crime dramas where things are just thrown in there to, like, shock you and do this stuff and they don't really make sense at the end. Like, everything ties together without being so obvious that you get it. Like, you will flip back and forth between, like, oh, I have no clue what's going on. I'm so excited. What's going to happen? Oh my God, I can't believe, you know what I mean? Like, it really is a back and forth of, like, just craziness. Like, it's so good.
Yes, sir.
So, yeah.
Do we want to move on to the spoilers now?
Yeah, I think we should just give it a quick kind of rating, like, each of us. I'll say, if I was going to be boring and put a number to it, for me, this is definitely like a 9 out of 10. I don't want to give it a... Oh, I gave Trial of Chicago 7 a 10 out of 10, didn't I?
I was going to say, is that the film that I gave a 9? Yeah,
I kind of fucked up there, because this is way... Even though Trial of Chicago 7's good, this is why I didn't want to do numbers.
You're just excited, man.
I was very excited. It was the first episode of a podcast. All right, I'm going to revoke my 10 out of 10 for Trial of Chicago 7. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm already going back. So I would give Trial of Chicago 7 an 8 out of 10, and I would give this film like a 9.5 out of 10. It's fucking... I'm with you. I shouldn't have given a perfect score. I was too excited.
I'd give it a 9. I'll just say 9. Yeah.
It's a great film. Please, 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 if you haven't seen it, don't listen to this spoiler stuff now, because you're really going to be kicking yourself when you hear how awesome this film is. And you haven't seen it, and you know everything. So yes, I'm just going to say again, we're going into spoilers now. Don't get mad if you kept listening, because I'm being very clear. We are going to spoil this
sound
film.
Effects, spoilers.
Warning sound effect. All right, you ready? 3, 2, 1. I can't believe Hugh Jackman murdered Jake Gyllenhaal at the end. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. That doesn't happen. But seriously, we're going to spoil it now. So fuck off.
Okay.
I'm so nice to everybody.
Right.
Let's talk about the actual spoilers. So, my God, what a twist. Oh my.
We're starting at the end.
Yeah, man.
Going from the end to the beginning.
We'll dart all over the place. There's so much to say.
Around. Just hop.
Jump around.
Hey.
So the aunt turns out to be the fucking kidnapper.
The aunt.
Oh my God.
Old aunt.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
so it turns out that this aunt character, who isn't even really the aunt of Paul Dano, because he's also a kidnapped victim. It turns out that
Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, herself and her husband, they their kid died of cancer quite young, and so they got mad at the world and were like, God, how could you? And so, like, they start kidnapping children and just drugging them up so they can't remember how they got there, and then just letting them, like, starve to death in a hole. Or get eaten by snakes. It's ambiguous. I think they kill them in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, your classic small town with bad weather in America, pretty much.
Yeah, with child abductors and murderers. But yeah, so like, the idea is that at the start, we're led to believe there's this RV that pulls up outside of the houses. It's all like, it's a very wrecked RV, and the kids go out for like to kick some ice on the ground, and the two older siblings of both families go out with them, and the little kids climb on this RV, and they're like, fucking get off it. And then the kids go missing after that, and the idea is that the RV is the only connection they have. And we have this great scene where Jake Gyllenhaal, like, it's like they find the RV, and Jake Gyllenhaal's there, and a bunch of the police are, like, you know, slowly approaching it, and the RV just starts going crazy. It's almost like it's trying to hit the cops, but then it drives straight into, like, a tree, and that's where Paul Dano gets arrested. And that's where Hugh Jackman's madness really kicks off, because he gets released because they only have a 48-hour hold on him, because they realize he's so, you know, the IQ of a 10-year-old. He can't even answer questions, so, like... but Hugh Jackman's fixated on this idea that, like, well, if he has the IQ of a 10-year-old, how can he have a driver's license? Which is a very good point. I want to know how he got that license.
Yeah, plot hole.
Yeah, I really...
Plot hole, guys.
Maybe he was just good at driving. But yeah, so then Hugh Jackman kidnaps Paul Dano and just tortures him because he's convinced he either kidnapped them or knows what happened to them. Yeah. And those torture scenes are just...
If we can go back a bit...
Yeah, sure.
When the two families initially realised that their kids are gone, I actually really like it when to begin with they're like, oh yeah, it's fine, you know, they're probably just outside, and it's that thing of just like building and building until it builds to Hugh Jackman and his son, like they're running just in the rain. Where do they run, man? Where do they actually run?
They run to where his kid... What's his kid's name? Ralph? I'm just going to call him Clay. They run to where Clay remembers that the RV was parked.
Yeah.
And once it's gone, that's when Hugh Jackman calls the police and realises that, you know, they're fucked.
Yeah, and Hugh Jackman's actually kind of a bit of a dickhead to his son.
Yes, he is. He gets more of a dickhead throughout.
Yeah, but I guess that's just testament to him becoming unhinged as fuck.
Yeah, exactly. He goes crazy.
Yeah.
Because, so I'll go back to talking about the torture scenes because they are brutal.
That's one thing that like just stuck with me from whenever I last watched it.
There's a point where Viola Davis's character, she's the wife of Terrence Howard, who Hugh Jackman has Terrence Howard help him torture him at first, and Terrence Howard's very conflicted, so he snaps and tells Viola Davis, who goes over, and she walks into the room and sees him. And by this point, they're like 2 days into torturing this guy. Because I did point out that I made a note of, like, you know, in the the bit where, like, he gets Terrence Howard over and then we cut to something else and then we cut back to them like hours later still beating him up. They literally were in that house beating him up non-stop for 8 entire hours.
Yeah.
I'm like, how is he not dead?
I did kind of pick up on that a bit as well. How I think every time they took a step in kind of torturing him or beating him up, they didn't really show much.
Yes.
Of like the damage actually occurring, and it kind of cuts. At one point, it cuts back to his face absolutely destroyed.
He's got like 2 swollen eyes.
Yeah, and you're just taken back, like, yeah.
They held off on the face reveal for 1,000 subscribers now. They held off on the face reveal for like when Viola Davis sees him, because we kind of almost experienced the same thing as her, where it's almost as, you know, like we're told, it's almost as if we're just told, like she is, that he's being tortured, because we only see the start of it.
Oh my god.
And then once we finally see how bad it is, we're like, holy fuck, like we're right with her.
Yeah, that's actually crazy. Like that I think that shot's really good because you know when Viola Davis, her character like kneels down and like we're behind her, but
Yeah, yeah.
his face is
It's the focus.
hidden.
Oh, it's hidden. Oh,
It's
yes, it
hidden
is.
by the
Sorry, yeah.
sink, isn't it? Which
Well,
has
he's
already
got a
been
bag on his head, hasn't he?
well, yeah. But even after she takes the bag off,
Oh,
it's
right.
still hidden by the sink, which
Yes, no,
is
you're right,
broken by
Hugh Jackman freaking out.
Hugh Jackman freaking out and like smashing a hammer into it, and also
Yeah.
smashing a hammer into the wall, which was actually done. Like that's just Hugh Jackman's power.
I was gonna say like for that take, Denis Villeneuve said like just go fucking crazy. Like they didn't give him any direction, like smash the sink then smash the wall. They just said go crazy.
Yeah.
And it turned out great.
Yeah. Oh, it's really good.
But yeah, like that. The torturing stuff is they do a really clever and interesting thing where we don't know for sure that he's abducted the kids. Like even all evidence points to the fact that he hasn't actually. Like there's no evidence in the RV. He's like brain dead inside, so it's like how could he even? Even though he drops hints like, you know, when he says to Hugh Jackman like they didn't cry until I left. Like that's purely just because his aunt's fucking kidnapping them and like he's in the house, like, so, you know, it's not even his fault. But yeah, what I thought was really interesting and clever is they do this thing where even though we're half thinking he's innocent, but we're also like there's something about this guy that he must have something to do with it. They do a really interesting thing where like he strangles a dog and like he takes his dog for a walk and strangles it. I've never been so cringed in my life, like watching it, maybe with the snakes later, as you could tell, because that's when we were watching it together, and I was like, fuck, fucking snakes. But when he lifts that dog up and like starts strangling it, you're like, I'm like, then the next scene when he's beating him up, I'm like, yep, deserved, you fucking strangled a dog.
Yeah.
Like, it's as simple as, even though he's innocent at the end, you still root for Hugh Jackman because he strangled a dog, you know what I mean? Like, it's very interesting.
And we see him, you know, strangle this dog and take him out for a walk, because Hugh Jackman is, like trying to stalk him basically because he's been released from custody now.
Yeah.
And my ad, he decides to stake out a house.
Yeah.
In a pickup truck that has his name on every side of the pickup truck. Can I just say that?
Bro,
that's so dumb.
I literally didn't realise until you just said it.
It's like saying, "Hey, I'm Hugh Jackman. I'm looking at you." I mean, admittedly, this guy's got the IQ of a 10-year-old.
But his aunt doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. Imagine anyone else. There are people in this town.
Yeah, what if Jake Gyllenhaal decided to go and actually like survey the house, even though they told him it was already being surveyed? What if he just showed up? It's also a good point of like he drives that everywhere. So when he's torturing him in the house, he leaves his car outside.
Yeah,
which has his name all over it. That's a really good point. Oh my god! But either way, yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I was before we say about the pickup truck, I was getting to the reason Hugh Jackman abducted him is because in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Am I American?
The parking lot.
In the car park, bro.
In the car park, I eat. That's British.
Hugh Jackman decided to confront Alex Jones,
that's his name. Yeah, Paul Dano
kiddo. When he was getting released, and when he kind of tried to beat him up and rough him up, he whispered. What did he whisper?
He says they didn't cry until I left.
Yeah, they didn't cry until I left them. Yeah,
and the police don't believe him. Like Jake Gyllenhaal's like, did anyone else fucking hear him say that?
Yeah. And then also after he strangles the dog with the collar, Hugh Jackman gets out his pickup truck.
Yeah.
He hears this song that the girls were singing on Thanksgiving Day. So that
they're like Christmas, like Jingle Bells, Batman Smells, Robin Laid an Egg.
Yeah, that classic.
Right, just real quick. What is the Robin laying the egg just meant to be that it's the bird that would lay an egg? Because I'm just picturing Robin in his shorts just shitting out an egg.
Yeah, just squeezing a fat one out. Yeah.
I guess it's a superpower. You don't get to be called Robin without shitting out some eggs.
True.
But yeah,
That's canon.
DC, get on it. Origin comic, please.
No.
So I guess we should talk about. Let's talk about the thing that you realized. The thing that finally made everything connect for us.
Ooh. I mean,
we should say
we don't really need that part.
No,
but it is cool.
Like, well, I mean, both of us didn't realize the first time, and the film still worked for us. So,
Yeah.
But basically, so early on in the film, Jake Gyllenhaal is like, I'm gonna search. I'm gonna go around, knock on the doors of like the sex offenders that are like in the local area, and he finds like a guy that's got German porn in like his in like his drawers or whatever, and he just dumps it out everywhere. And then we finally get to a church, and I was like, oh god.
they're playing on the stereotype admirably.
Well, a lot of this film is actually a criticism of religion, to be fair. Like, we'll talk about it more towards the end, but like, he goes to this preacher's house who's like just passed out drunk on the floor, and he finds like, I don't know what the proper word for it. I guess it would just be a basement, but it's kind of like a crawl space, but it's huge. And he finds a dead body down there with like this pendant around his neck that's like an unsolvable maze, which is a through line throughout the film. And basically, we find out that was a guy who came to the preacher saying that like he would abduct and kill kids, and he just wanted to die. So presumably, the preacher was like, "All right, fine." Because, you've prayed, so I guess that means you're allowed to escape justice and just kill yourself.
Yeah,
okay.
That's how religion works.
Fucking hell. But so then he just rots in that basement, and so then later on in the film, what happens, Joe?
Later on, you mean at the very end?
I mean, I'm talking about when it all comes together, when he picks up the picture of the husband. Right, when you realised.
Well, yeah. Hugh Jackman goes into the aunt's house after realising, his daughter's going to be in there somewhere, and he picks up the picture.
Oh, it's Jake Gyllenhaal who does that. This is afterwards.
Oh yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal. Yep.
Yeah.
And
by this point, Hugh Jackman's stuck in the hole.
Yeah. And he sees this pendant and necklace on this, very much alive in the picture.
It's her husband, isn't it?
Who is her husband.
And earlier in the film, we should point out that she says that her husband like left, like he just ran off. And this is before we know that she's a child abductor. So obviously we just think, oh, the husband left because the kid died or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you pointed out
that's the guy who was in the basement
because he had the same pendant. It was the way
I know it's very hard to believe. I know it's a stretch. I'm clever. I'm pretty clever. What can I say?
It's pretty clever, guys. Bro, the fact you paused it, and I was like, why is he fucking pausing it right now? We're like, this is the climax. And then you were like, bro. And I was like, what? And then you were like, bro, that's the dead guy in the basement. And I was like, oh shit. Like everything finally connected. I was like, because I just thought maybe there was like because there's a character who I don't know the actor's name, but he's in The Dark Knight. He's like one of the Joker's followers who turns out to be like an aspiring child abductor who like, I think he was kidnapped actually by the aunt character, but he managed to get away, but he was drugged, so he didn't remember what happened. And he grew up like then kind of obsessing over this book about child abductors, and that's where the pendant's from. Yeah,
well, at the time it would have been both of them, wouldn't it? It would have been the husband and the aunt.
Oh yeah. But he manages to get away from both of them.
Yeah. He gets away from both of them, and he's damaged, and he's maybe a paedophile. Or,
he becomes like a. They think he's the prime suspect, but then they find out that he just we get thrown for. He just kind of fakes it, like he gets child mannequins and like pretends they're kids that have been abducted. And like smashes their faces in, and that makes sense with the snakes as well, because we find out that the reason, one of the reasons that Paul Dano's so messed up, other than being drugged by the aunt for years, is that like the aunt character, like her husband had like kept snakes, which always freaked him out, and one like it's ambiguous, but it's one probably like bit him or something, and like it really fucked him up like mentally, along with the drugs.
And and this guy with the
copycat guy,
copycat. It's like a fantasy to him, isn't it? Cause
that's why he has the snakes. Yeah,
he wants to be them, and he had the Invisible Man book, didn't he? And
that's the book that inspired them.
Yeah, I guess he's like, oh, this must be them. But he can't remember because he got drugged. And,
you're right. Yeah, of course.
So, yeah, he kind of, I guess he wants to...
They find, like, because they think he's the killer because the parents positively identify pieces of clothing covered in blood that belong to the kids. But what he did was he snuck into their houses, stole pieces of clothing and put them on mannequins that he then covered in pig's blood and buried. Because he's because he doesn't want to actually abduct kids because, he was a victim of it, but he is also so fucked up that he wants to, kind of imitate it.
I feel like that, if you could take anything and be like, come on, guys, maybe that.
Yeah.
It's a bit...
It is a little bit of a stretch, I'll give you that.
Especially because, apparently, I think in the end, the aunt, she brags about how... they've done it so many times and, gives the inkling that they're good at this. But...
Two people get away.
Yeah. The Terrence Howard's daughter, Joy.
Yeah, she gets away, yeah.
And this,
random Dark Knight creepy guy.
Yeah, he gets away.
And he still lives in the same town.
Yeah, and they also let Alex Jones guy, Paul Dano's character, live. So are you really?
So the idea is that people? We're never probably shown what I think Paul Dano's character. We'll say Alex was the first victim they had, and so I think because it was after the loss of their son, they kept him for some reason. Like they just took a liking to him, but then all the other kids they just didn't and just killed. But I mean, she has snapped, so it's like
Yeah.
And even though that copycat stuff is a little bit of a stretch, it's still like it doesn't detract from the film. It's just one of those things where you're like, oh, okay, that's one way of doing like a kind of a twisty, kind of a you think it's but it's not. And like we said, the performances and like the emotion of it all are so compelling that even though it's a bit of a stretch, it still totally works for me.
Yeah, and then another link is that Alex, 10IQ guy. He's the son of this woman that Hugh Jackman went to. What was
Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah, Jake Gyllenhaal.
Wait. No, it was Jake Gyllenhaal. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because he's investigating things and he saw this similar case 26 years ago. And
she's like, it's the same thing that happened to my kid. Like, she's
oh yeah, it's got to be. How can she know? But I guess that's something you just say.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's in the same town and it's similar circumstance. Like you would think it's the same.
Yeah. And they get reunited at the end.
Yeah. We don't see it. We just see it in like a newspaper headline.
Yeah, it shows on the newspaper for like a second.
Well, I guess it's because because you've got this thing at the end where Hugh Jackman is kind of tricked by the aunt character because he realizes it's her. And he goes with like a big bag of like supplies with like ropes and stuff because he doesn't know where his daughter could be. He knows she's somewhere on the premise, but he doesn't know on the premise. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
but doesn't know where. So he goes with like a bag with like rope and all this stuff to for any situation because he's prepared. And he's got a gun in the bag. We find out, but he decides to be like, oh, I've come to fix like parts of your house or whatever, and he goes over to the sink and then says, I don't want to hurt you, and then she pulls a gun. I'm like, she's been kidnapping kids for a long time. You really didn't think to just immediately pull the gun? Or it was like you said, why doesn't he just jump on her and start beating the shit out of her?
Fucking beat the shit out of her.
Like he knows for sure that it's her.
Hey, maybe he was hoping for something else. I'm just saying, someone rocks up to your door as a handyman.
Oh,
and he's like,
hey, no.
Hey, I heard you could do the little bit of a hand.
He's too good of an actor for porn.
Yeah. do you want to show me where your sink is broke?
This sink is very broken. You're going to have to climb in and look.
Oh no, I'm stuck.
Oh my god.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm face palming right now, fully.
Sorry. That's just my mind at work.
It's been a long week.
Yeah, if only I could see Hugh Jackman railing that old woman, man. if
An old woman who
only, man.
kidnapped his dog.
Yeah, man.
Now that would have been a good ending. Denise
That would have been a
Villeneuve.
twist.
Look, Denise. I know you've made some very good films, but I have an idea for your Villeneuve cut. I have a very, we can do it with CGI if you need. If you can't get the actors back, we'll make it happen.
Yeah.
You're wondering why this film didn't win an Oscar? That's why.
Ah.
Everyone at the Oscars went, oh, bloody hell. Why isn't that? I thought it was leading for this.
Everyone was disappointed when it didn't happen. Like it was like the whole film was building to that point.
Yeah.
And
when
then
the film ends,
happen.
everybody's like, seriously? There's no... Really? Fucking hell.
Come on, man.
Just Denise Villeneuve in like a boardroom like, what? He's like, what do you mean? Everybody shows the film. Well, I was expecting this, but I guess it's okay. We'll put it out. Anyway. But yeah, so he comes prepared with a gun, and somehow she gets the better of him, and he ends up getting shot and like getting thrown in this hole that she has where she like lets the kids starve to death and shit like that, or hides them if the police are coming searching the house. Yeah, and God, you've thrown me off with that thing. I don't even remember what we were talking about. Oh my God.
I guess we can kind of maybe wrap up the main story. Like, because I feel like we've kind of been going somewhat in chronological order.
Somewhat, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, at the end, Jake Gyllenhaal, he
But it's kind of an accident that he ends up at the house, isn't it?
yeah, because he finds where
Paul Dano is.
Paul Dano, has been tortured. He goes there to say he's in hospital or whatever, presumably.
Yeah, to tell the aunt like what's going on.
Yeah, he goes there. She hears that he's coming,
so she tries to kill the kid quickly.
Yeah, and decides to start trying to kill the kid, I guess.
Hugh Jackman's daughter, this is.
Yeah.
And that's when he sees the photo and everything comes together for him.
Yeah, he works his way through the house.
A little bit too late, Jake, but
Yeah. And he gets grazed by a bullet.
Yeah. He gets shot in the head, but it grazes him.
Yeah. And while you could think of that as kind of a bit dumb, maybe, but the sequence that ensues after that, with him driving, like blood pouring down his face, swerving in between the cars, and his vision like getting less and less, and he's just pushed forward by this want to solve the case, I guess, but also it's kind of become more than that at this point, because
this is when he's finally like he snaps and he's like he lets down all the pretense. He's fully invested. Like
that. Actually, now that I think about it, that is a good point, because he's actually very emotional towards the girl
at the end,
definitely, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's like, Anna, no.
I think it becomes this point of we have the famous smashing of the keyboard scene that you'll see in all of the greatest acting of all time compilations, and that's when things are like finally come together with him. But also, it's like before that they basically just have to assume that he hasn't solved the case. That the kid, Hugh Jackman's kid Anna, they have to assume that she's dead, and like Jake Gyllenhaal, they're like, look, you don't solve all the cases, and I think that's when his character finally snaps and is, because they're just saying like, this isn't your case anymore, like you're done, and he still pursues it, because at this point it's not even a case of he wants to keep that golden record, like all the pretenses down. He's finally like, no, this isn't about the job. I don't care if my record shows that I didn't do this. I'm gonna save this little girl because she's a little girl, and like it's my responsibility, you know what I mean? I don't care if some file says it isn't my responsibility anymore. This is my responsibility. And that scene where he's driving her at the end, you're right, like he's going out, like he's blurred vision, like he's about to pass out from like blood loss and stuff, but he's so like he cares so much that he just keeps going, and he makes it to the hospital. And we have this amazing thing where he's just running in screaming for help. Like there's none of that like tough exterior anymore. Like he's just completely dropped it, and he's just
Yeah.
he just wants to help the girl, and it's it's awesome. Like
It's like his natural, his natural instincts have come in, and therefore, a bit of emotion maybe has been brought back. I mean, you could say we're reaching a bit here, but
I mean, no, it's very. You could definitely interpret this. Like, I mean, that's why we are.
Well, exactly.
Yeah,
you can interpret how you want.
Because, like we said, even though it's not explored in the film, like his backstory of like growing up as an orphan, and like that's why he's very emotionally detached, and that's what makes him such a good detective. Like, I just think it's finally like him letting his guard down and like caring about, like actually caring about the people in the case rather than just the case. Like. And and that's ultimately what saves Hugh Jackman at the end as well, is because he's so persistent about caring about, this entire case, that even though everyone's just giving up because it's snowing and they're like, we can't get through any of this, we can't search the premises, like whatever.
Yeah.
He stays because he's just, even though Hugh Jackman, really fucked up his case quite a lot and was a huge problem for him, it's still this guy who, lost his kid, and he can kind of understand. And that's why at the end he stays and hears him calling out for help. And all comes together.
And this is under presumably under 24 hours.
Yeah.
Since he's been shot, and he's out of the hospital. He's there at the crime scene. Everyone's packing up, and he kind of like looks around. Maybe he's like just thinking about the whole, like, how crazy it is, whatever. And he hears whistling from underneath, like this hole that Hugh Jackman was in, which it's not just a hole out in the open.
It's like it's under a board that's underneath a car that's parked on top of it. And stuff.
Like a broken down car.
You can't see it.
Presumably, you think it's broken down.
So you wouldn't even try to move it.
And
it's also, the whistle is a part of like the reason that the girls went out on their own on Thanksgiving and ended up getting kidnapped was because they were looking for it's a rape whistle. Let's not sugarcoat it. It's a rape whistle. And Hugh Jackman finds it in the hole. Like, that's where his daughter, when she was in there, she left it, and it ends up saving his life. And it's just... Because it's another testament to, like, this idea that him always being prepared and like, Jake Gyllenhaal's dedication all end up saving both of them, really. Like, Jake Gyllenhaal always being dedicated ends in him finding the kid and saving her, and Hugh Jackman always being prepared. He like instilled that knowledge onto his kids, even his young daughter, so she left the whistle down there, like, like she had the whistle on it, but she was smart enough to leave it down there just in case, either she got put down there again, or like, and everything kind of pays off, even though these characters are very flawed. Like, it just shows that the main things that they believe in do end up bringing about good, and I just think that's a really cool kind of message. Like, you can be kind of fucked up, but if you have the right ideals instilled in you, and like, you can go wrong, but as long as you don't try and actively do bad things, like, I'm rambling, but like, it's just a really cool message. Like, like, if you have a good overall moral code, you're a really good person, like, and it will ultimately bring about good things, which is kind of cool.
Another thing you say is, the whistle is almost the reason the girls got kidnapped, but at the end the whistle is the reason he gets saved.
That's actually a really nice kind of
it's a nice
little thing.
thought, or it comes full circle, I guess,
which is kind of what this all
cool.
It's kind of what the whole film's about, is everything coming together at the end. Like, everything comes back around to be relevant, which I love, because so many screenplays just fucking, I should say like films, but it is in the writing. So many films are written like, and we put this in to shock the audience or do something without even thinking about how it plays into the plot, and it just never means anything in the end. And this is one of those few films where everything is relevant. Like, there's no wasted time in this film. Like, everything matters. It's important, and I really like that and respect that.
And it is the best ending you could get, really. Not really, but it is a good ending in the end. If you think about it, but also you kind of don't get the full payoff, because you don't see him and his daughter like reunited, but you can guess that they that they do, but also he's going to go to jail as well, which is
that's the thing. I think the idea of it all is that he knows full well that he's going to have to... It's this religion thing again, where he has to pay for his sins. Like, he knows that what he's doing is ultimately going to damn him, like, torturing, but for him, it's just about his daughter being safe, and I think that's why we have this at the end, where it's like... Because if it followed on from that, it'd be quite unsatisfying to see Hugh Jackman actually have to go off to prison and stuff. I like how it's left... Yeah, I like how it's left with, like, everything's resolved that needs to be resolved. Like, Jake Gyllenhaal solves the entire case. Hugh Jackman's, like, he doesn't die even though he's going to go to prison. But, like, everything he did in the end was worth it. Like, his daughter is safe. And now, he knows he has to pay for his sins now. But everything he did was to save her, and she gets saved. So it's it's like I said before, I was trying to explain, it's very satisfying. Like, everything works in the film. Like, everything comes together and actually means something relevant, like, you know what I mean? It's just it's great. So the last thing I want to talk about before we wrap this up is just I did mention the whole criticism of religion thing, and I think it's very interesting. Like, I don't want to look into this and, like, and I'm not, by this whole criticism of religion thing, I'm not accusing Denis Villeneuve or the writer of being like, religion sucks, but I just think as a storyline, like as a thread throughout the whole film, the criticism of religion is very interesting, because there's, like, this idea that Hugh Jackman's always saying the Lord's Prayer and is like, forgive us our trespasses and all this shit, like, to try and justify what he's doing to the Alex character, like the torturing. And I find it very interesting. He says things like he's not a person anymore because of what he's done. Yeah. And, like, he's always trying to justify it and bring it back to religion, like, someone does wrong, they punish, sin, you get punished. But then there is a point where he's doing the Lord's Prayer after he's been torturing him for ages and he's going crazy. And he realizes the very next line is, forgive those who trespass against us. Yeah. And it's kind of this moment where, like, it's explored a lot of, like, the hypocritical nature of it. Like, you know what I mean? He's like, this guy's sinned. And like, like, forgive mine, but don't forgive his, and Hugh Jackman kind of sits there, and it's very subtle, but he kind of pauses on that line, and you can tell by the look in his face, he's like, fuck me, he's like, I'm not right, like, this isn't right. He finally realizes that it's wrong what he's doing.
Hugh before we probably wrap up, Hugh Jackman's acting, man.
Oh, so good.
Good. Jake Gyllenhaal is already... Fantastic. I think he's more respected than Hugh Jackman in terms of acting, but...
Yes.
In terms of, like, more serious...
Let's say, like, Oscar-worthy acting, let's say. I think Jake Gyllenhaal's seen as more of an Oscar win. Like, I don't think he has won an Oscar yet. I don't know. But he's seen as more of an actor. Like a Ryan Gosling, like... They're in artsy films that, like, are about the acting, whereas Hugh Jackman's in, he's in X-Men. Even though he's an incredible actor, he's not really... I get what you're trying to say. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm also kind of surprised that such a nice Aussie
fucking Aussie
fellow can produce such rage.
Well, I mean, he was preparing with Wolverine for years, wasn't he?
yeah, but nothing in Wolverine is like anything like in this, like, in terms of just, like, the
pure rage,
just rage, man.
Like, I believe this a lot more than any performance he's given in Wolverine. Like,
he's really good, man. He's good at shouting.
He's very good at shouting. There's that amazing scene in the car where it's raining, where, like, Hugh Jackman is like, why the fuck are you following me, Jake Gyllenhaal? And he just fucking loses it. And it's so intense and just believable. It's great.
And then one other thing. When he's by himself with Alex, when he's in the horrific torture, the shower chamber, he's kind of just quiet by himself, and he's got his hand on the lever to turn it on, and a tear just rolls down his cheek,
and he doesn't end up doing it, does he?
Yeah, and he's just he's questioning whether he's gone too far. And
everybody just does a fantastic job, but mainly Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman. They are
they're on the poster, aren't they?
Exactly, so. It is about those two, For Hugh Jackman, it's a story about how far are you willing to go to save your daughter, and for Jake Gyllenhaal, it's a case of, how much does sticking to the rules actually kind of hinder it? It's like which way is better almost, and it just turns out that both ways do eventually get results.
Yeah, I mean the parallel can be drawn where I know you said like they're both just so dedicated and will do whatever to like each of their causes.
Yeah.
And that does show.
So I mean, I think we're running out of things to say, which
maybe running out of time.
We
can go for however long, but
there's no fucking
it's getting
rules.
on a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, as I said, I knew that I was I kind of had no ideas for this week just because there was nothing big coming out. I mean, there's nothing big coming out anyway nowadays, but we didn't have like a big topic to go over that we thought about in the week like last week. And then Prisoners, just I think we just spoke about it briefly.
I know I've mentioned it a lot of times in the past. Just like I really like it.
And I just thought, well, fuck it, like it, I'm presuming a lot of people, the people listening maybe haven't seen this film, and I thought, what a great way to, one, tell people to fucking watch it, like, because it's amazing, and two, for people who have seen it, like, I thought this would be a nice place for them to think about what everything means in it and just really just take it in, you know what I mean? Because it's really worth taking in, this film. It's great.
Yep.
So, I think that's everything we have to say. I mean, I'm just thinking, I don't think there's anything we missed out. Like, there may be slight things, but nothing of
there
major
probably is,
importance.
but we're just jumping about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and also, it's getting later. So we'll wrap this up before we just start rambling. So thanks very much for listening, guys. I hope you either have now seen Prisoners because of this podcast and love it, or that listening to us love this film that you've seen before makes you maybe think about it in a different way and appreciate it kind of more. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So thanks very much for listening, guys. We'll be back next week, and again, not really sure what we're going to talk about because I did have it wouldn't have been next week, it would have been the week after. I did have Cyberpunk planned to be talked about, but we all know what happened there.
Yeah.
It's now delayed until December, which is annoying because December is the month where I have the most planned for this podcast because Brad will be back, so we'll have a lot of things to do with both him and Chris.
Yeah.
It's annoying that
Star
Cyberpunk
Wars.
comes out. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I should say, just to get, if anyone cares, to be excited, we're going to do I know you care, and I'm glad you do. We're going to do a huge Star Wars episode with the four of us. We're going to, prior to recording, we're going to watch Revenge of the Sith and get very drunk watching it, and then you'll have to prepare your ears because for an hour afterwards we'll just argue about Star Wars drunkenly for an hour because that's all Star Wars fans do is argue about Star Wars. So I thought it'd be funny if we were drunk and you could have a good laugh along to us shouting at each other. But yeah, so leading up to that, I mean, I think we're going to start watching, after we did the Marvel episode, we were talking about how there's actually a lot of Marvel films we haven't actually seen in quite a while. So me, Chris, and Joe are actually watching some week to week. So if we end up having things to say about that, we'll maybe do a specific Marvel movie episode rather than just, the Elimination Tournament. We might actually specifically talk about one of the films or a couple. Yeah. But I mean, and also if you have any ideas of stuff that you want us to talk about, either, leave them in the comments because this is also on YouTube. Or get in touch with us. We do have a Instagram that nobody follows. But also,
most of you, if not maybe all at this point, probably know us.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
you probably know us because we've referred it to you. So, I mean, you can just tell us if there's anything you want us to talk about. And if not, we'll just talk about whatever. Look forward to December when we actually have plans. But until then, we'll just feel this out week to week. We'll talk about different things.
Yeah.
So, as always, you can listen to all these podcasts here on Spotify and or here on YouTube. They're all up on here, all 3 episodes. If you haven't listened to any of the previous ones, I'd highly encourage it, especially the episode 2, because I feel like that's probably the best one we've done so far. It's quite a fun time. I also have, well, if you're on YouTube, you know, I have a YouTube channel called Let's Talk About Some Shit, where my Umbrella Academy essay, character analysis, I should say, is up right now, where I go really in depth about Umbrella Academy. So check that out if you like Umbrella Academy or just video essays. And yeah, look forward to whatever we're doing next week. We'll decide.
We've just talked about some shit.
We have indeed talked. I feel like this has been the most talking shit episode we've ever done. Like,
I say talking about some shit. The film is not shit.
The film is not
talked
shit.
about some shit.
We should. When we say shit, we just mean like general stuff. Don't think the films are shit. They're not. They're great. Most of them are. We will talk about some shitty films. Maybe we should do an episode on New Mutants then. Maybe we should just talk about how fun of an experience we had. I don't know if we could talk for an hour about it though.
Yeah, we'll see.
We will indeed see. We are rambling, so I will actually wrap this up now. Thank you very much for listening, guys. And I've been Dan.
I've been Joe.
You have indeed been Joe.
That's me.
I didn't accidentally say your last name, which I did last week and had to edit it out.
And I did the first episode.
Yeah, the very first intro we ever did.
Yeah.
You were just like, fucking shit. Not that we're trying to stay hidden.
We're rambling.
Bye. Okay, bye. Bye.